Jake Morrison wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken pipe in front of him. Another day, another repair job. He worked on the mining ship called Horizon's Edge, fixing toilets and air filters. It was not a glamorous job, but someone had to do it. "Jake, you done with that waste recycler yet?" Ben Carter's voice crackled through his radio. "Almost," Jake replied. He was 28 years old and had been working on ships for 6 years. Most people ignored him. He was just the guy who fixed things when they broke. The ship shook suddenly. Jake grabbed the wall to steady himself. That was not normal. Mining ships did not shake like that unless something was very wrong. "All crew to stations," Captain Lisa Brennan's voice came through the speakers. "We have detected a distress signal." Jake quickly finished his work and headed to the main deck. He was not supposed to be there, but he was curious. When he arrived, he saw the captain and her officers staring at the main screen. "It's an alien ship," Ben said, pointing at the screen. "Looks badly damaged." "We should ignore it," one officer said. "Could be a trap." Jake stepped forward without thinking. "We have to help them. Someone might be dying." Everyone turned to look at him. Captain Brennan frowned. "Morrison, you should not be here." "I know, Captain, but that ship is falling apart. If someone is alive in there, they don't have much time." The captain studied the screen for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "Fine, we will investigate, but carefully." The Horizon's Edge moved closer to the damaged ship. It was unlike anything Jake had seen before. The metal was silver and purple, with strange symbols on the side. Parts of it were torn open, and debris floated around it. "I am reading one life sign," the scanner operator said. "Very faint. Deep inside the ship." "Can we beam them out?" the captain asked. "No, Captain. Too much interference from the damage. Someone would have to go inside." Everyone was quiet. Going into a dying alien ship was dangerous. It could explode at any moment. Jake spoke up again. "I will go." "Are you crazy?" Ben asked. "Look at the airlock." Jake pointed at the screen. "It's half collapsed. I am the smallest person here. I can fit through it." Captain Brennan looked at him for a long time. "You understand you might not come back?" "Yes, Captain, but if I do nothing, that person will definitely die." 20 minutes later, Jake was in a spacesuit, floating toward the alien ship. His heart pounded in his chest. He had never done anything like this before. He fixed pipes and filters. He was not a hero. The airlock was worse up close. Twisted metal blocked most of the entrance. Jake squeezed through a gap barely wide enough for his body. His suit scraped against the sharp edges. Inside the ship, everything was dark. His helmet light cut through the shadows. The walls were covered in strange writing. Smoke filled the corridors. Sparks flew from broken wires. "Jake, your oxygen is limited," Ben's voice came through his radio. "You have 30 minutes. Maybe less." "Understood," Jake said. He followed his scanner toward the life sign. The ship groaned around him. Metal creaked and bent. He climbed over debris and squeezed through collapsed doorways. Finally, he reached a large chamber. In the center was a strange pod, glowing with a faint blue light. Inside was a figure wearing silver armor. Jake could not see the face clearly through the pod's frosted glass. He checked his scanner. The pod was failing. Life support was at 15% and dropping fast. Jake looked at the alien systems. He could not read the language, but machines worked the same everywhere. He found the power cables and traced them back to a damaged junction box. "Come on. Come on," he muttered, pulling out his tools. He bypassed the broken circuits and rerouted power from a backup cell. The pod's light grew brighter, but it was not enough. The pod needed more power to keep working until they got back to the ship. Jake made a decision. He unplugged his suit's heating unit and connected it to the pod's power system. Cold immediately seeped into his suit, but the pod stabilized. "Jake, what did you just do?" Ben asked. "Your suit temperature is dropping." "I am fine," Jake lied. "I need to move this pod." The pod was heavy, but in zero gravity, he could push it. He guided it back through the ship, moving as fast as he dared. His fingers were getting numb from the cold. His breath made frost on his helmet's inside. The ship shook violently. "Jake, that ship is going to explode!" the captain shouted through the radio. "Get out now!" "Almost there," Jake gasped. He pushed the pod through the twisted airlock. His hands were so cold he could barely feel them. Suddenly, the alien ship lurched. A massive explosion tore through its rear section. The blast threw Jake and the pod away from the ship. "Ben, catch us!" Jake yelled. A tractor beam from the horizon's edge grabbed them both. Jake and the pod flew toward the ship's cargo bay. They crashed inside just as the alien ship exploded behind them in a ball of fire. Jake lay on the floor, shaking from cold. Crew members ran to the pod. They carefully opened it and pulled out the figure inside. She was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and silver hair. Her armor was covered in symbols. She was not breathing. "Get her to medical now," Captain Brennan ordered. As they carried her away, Jake saw something around her neck. It was a pendant with a crown symbol. He did not know what it meant, but it looked important. Ben helped Jake to his feet. "You are either very brave or very stupid." "Maybe both," Jake said, his teeth chattering. He watched as they rushed the alien woman to the medical bay. He hoped she would survive. It would be terrible to go through all that just to lose her anyway. Jake did not know he had just saved the most powerful person in 3 star systems. He did not know that this moment would change everything. He was just glad to be alive and warm again. He went back to his quarters, took a hot shower, and fell asleep. Tomorrow, he would go back to fixing pipes and filters. That was his life. Nothing special, nothing important. He had no idea how wrong he was. The alien woman did not wake up for 3 days. Dr. Amy Chen worked around the clock to keep her alive. The medical bay was filled with strange machines that the crew had taken from the pod. Jake went back to his normal work. He cleaned air filters and fixed leaking pipes. Nobody talked much about the rescue. Captain Brennan had told everyone to keep quiet about it. "Earth government is worried," Ben told Jake one morning. "They do not know who this alien is. But her ship was fancy. Really fancy." Jake shrugged. He was just glad she was alive. That was all that mattered to him. On the 4th day, everything changed. Jake was deep in the engine room when the alarms went off. He dropped his wrench and ran to see what was happening. When he reached the main deck, everyone was staring at the screens in shock. Outside the ship, space was full of alien vessels. Dozens of them. No, hundreds of them. They were massive warships, each one 10 times bigger than the horizon's edge. "This is the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet," a voice boomed through the ship's speakers. "You have our queen. Return her immediately or be destroyed." Queen. The word echoed in Jake's mind. He had saved a queen. Captain Brennan looked pale. "Open a channel. Tell them we found her damaged ship. We rescued her. She is alive and receiving medical care." The alien voice was silent for a moment. Then it said, "We are sending a boarding party. Do not resist." An hour later, tall aliens in silver armor marched through the ship. They were Zephyrians, the same species as the woman Jake had rescued. They moved with military precision, checking every room and every crew member. Their leader was a massive alien with scars on his face. His name was General Thexvar. He went straight to the medical bay. Jake watched from a distance as they examined the queen. Dr. Chen explained everything she had done to save her. The general listened, but his face showed no emotion. "She will live," Dr. Chen said. "But she needs more time to recover." "She needs more time to recover. We will take her now," the general said. "She should not be moved yet," Dr. Chen protested. The general's eyes narrowed. "We have our own doctors. She will be safer with her people." Nobody could argue with that. The Zephyrians carefully moved the queen to a medical pod and carried her to their ship. Before they left, the general spoke to Captain Brennan. "Who rescued our queen from the dying ship?" The captain hesitated. Then she said, "I did. I led the rescue operation." Jake frowned. That was not exactly true. But he said nothing. He understood. The captain was trying to protect him and the crew. The general studied her face. You have our gratitude. The Zephyrian Empire does not forget such deeds. The Zephyrian Empire. 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 Then they were gone. The massive fleet turned and disappeared into the darkness of space. Everyone on the ship breathed a sigh of relief. They had survived an encounter with the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Jake went back to his work. He felt strange about the captain taking credit, but he understood. Politics were complicated. He was just a maintenance guy. It was better this way, but the story was not over. Far away, on the Zephyrian flagship, Queen Velshara opened her eyes. She was in a healing chamber, surrounded by her own doctors and guards. Her sister, Princess Sora, was crying with relief. You are safe now, Sora said, holding her hand. Velshara's mind was foggy. She remembered the attack on her ship. She remembered hiding in the emergency pod. Then nothing but darkness and cold. How did I survive? She asked weakly. A human ship found you, General Thexvar explained. Their captain rescued you from your damaged vessel. Velshara closed her eyes. Fragments of memory flickered in her mind. She remembered darkness. She remembered cold. And she remembered something else. A figure in a bulky suit, hands working quickly, a warm voice saying, "Come on, come on." But the memory was unclear, like a dream. I want to thank the captain personally, she said. Of course, Your Majesty, the general said. When you are recovered. Days passed. Velshara grew stronger. But the memory of her rescue bothered her. Something did not feel right. She called for the ship's data expert. I want all the information about my rescue. Every detail. The expert brought her files, videos, and reports. Velshara studied them carefully. She watched the video from the human ship's cameras. She saw her pod being pulled into their cargo bay. She saw the explosion, but she wanted more. She wanted to see what happened inside her dying ship. Can we recover data from my ship's computers? She asked. The ship was destroyed, Your Majesty. But we found some debris. We might be able to recover partial data. It took 2 weeks, but they did it. Fragments of video from the ship's internal cameras were recovered. The quality was poor, and the video kept cutting out. But Velshara watched it over and over. She saw a figure in a human spacesuit enter her ship. She saw him squeeze through the damaged airlock. She saw him climb through the wreckage with determination. She saw him reach her pod, and then she saw him do something strange. He unplugged something from his own suit and connected it to her pod. The video showed frost forming on his helmet immediately after. He had given his own suit's heat to keep her alive. He had risked freezing to death to save her. Velshara called General Thexvar to her chamber. Who is this person? She asked, showing him the video. The general watched carefully. That is not the captain. The body size is wrong. The captain is a woman. This appears to be a man. A smaller human. Find out who he is, Velshara commanded. I want to know everything about him. The general bowed. Yes, Your Majesty. Velshara stared at the frozen video image. The figure was barely visible through the smoke and darkness. But she could see his hands working on the pod's systems. She could see his determination. In Zephyrian culture, a life debt was sacred. If someone saved your life, you owed them everything. And for a queen, that debt was even more important. Someone had risked their life to save hers. Someone had nearly frozen to death to keep her alive. And she did not even know his name. That was unacceptable. She touched the pendant around her neck, the symbol of her crown and her honor. I will find you, she whispered to the image, and I will repay my debt. Across the galaxy, Jake Morrison was fixing a clogged drain. He had no idea that the most powerful woman in 3 star systems was searching for him. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. He was just doing his job, same as always. Nothing special, nothing important. Or so he thought. 3 months had passed since the rescue. Jake Morrison sat in his small room on Deep Space Relay Station Kepler 7, eating a sandwich and watching old movies on his tablet. He had been transferred here 2 weeks ago as part of normal crew rotation. The station was tiny, with only 30 people. It floated in the middle of nowhere, passing messages between Earth and the outer colonies. It was even more boring than the mining ship. But Jake did not mind. He liked the quiet. His friend Ryan Walsh had sent him a message yesterday. Ryan still worked on the horizon's edge. He wrote about all the gossip and news. Jake missed his friend, but he did not miss the ship. Far away, in the royal palace on the Zephyrian homeworld, Queen Velshara was getting frustrated. Her agents had interviewed every crew member of the Horizon's Edge. They had analyzed every piece of data. And slowly, the truth was emerging. "Your Majesty," General Thexvar said, entering her private study. "We have found him." Velshara looked up from her desk. "Tell me everything." His name is Jake Morrison, age 28. He was a maintenance technician on the human mining vessel. He volunteered to enter your ship because he was small enough to fit through the damaged airlock. "Why did the captain lie?" Velshara asked. The general hesitated. "Humans have complex politics, Your Majesty. I believe the captain thought it would be simpler if a high-ranking officer took credit. This Morrison is a low-ranking worker. Humans value status highly." Velshara felt anger rise in her chest. In Zephyrian culture, rank did not matter when it came to honor. A deed was a deed, whether done by a queen or a servant. Where is he now? He has been transferred to a small relay station. Here are the coordinates. Velshara studied the information on the screen. She saw Jake's photo. He had a friendly face with brown hair and kind eyes. He looked ordinary, normal, not like someone who would risk his life for a stranger. "Prepare my ship," she said. "I am going to meet him, Your Majesty." "Is that wise?" the general asked carefully. "This is a small matter. We could simply send him a reward." "Small?" Velshara stood up, her voice sharp. "This man saved my life. He nearly died to keep me alive. There is nothing small about that. I owe him a life debt." "Of course, Your Majesty. I apologize. Besides," Velshara added more softly, "I want to understand. Why would a low-ranking human risk everything for someone he did not know? Someone who was not even his species?" The general had no answer to that. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ambassador Sophie Grant was having a terrible day. She had just received a message from the Zephyrian Empire. Queen Velshara wanted to visit one of their relay stations. She wanted to meet a maintenance worker named Jake Morrison. Sophie immediately called an emergency meeting with Earth's government. President Nathan Cross looked worried. "Why does she want to meet this Morrison?" he asked. "She knows he was the real rescuer," Sophie explained. "She is upset that Captain Brennan took credit." "This is bad," another official said. "Morrison is nobody. He cannot represent humanity to an alien queen. He will embarrass us." "We have to stop this meeting," someone else suggested. "We cannot," Sophie said firmly. "The queen has already threatened to consider any refusal an insult. An insult to the Zephyrian Empire means war. We have no choice." President Cross sighed. "Fine. But send someone to prepare this Morrison. Teach him protocol. Make sure he does not say anything stupid." Sophie contacted the station immediately. Commander Claire Martinez, the station's leader, was shocked by the news. "The alien queen is coming here?" Claire asked. "To this tiny station?" "Yes, tomorrow. She wants to meet Jake Morrison." "Jake?" Claire was even more confused. "The guy who fixes our toilets?" "Apparently, he is the one who rescued her. Please prepare him for the meeting." After the call ended, Claire went to find Jake. He was in the lower levels, repairing a water filter. "Jake, we need to talk." He looked up, surprised. The commander never came down to the maintenance areas. "Is something wrong?" "Not exactly. But you need to come with me." Now, in Claire's office, Jake learned the truth. The alien queen was coming. She wanted to meet him. Tomorrow. Jake felt dizzy. Why me? Because you saved her life, Claire said. She knows you were the real rescuer. But the captain said, the queen figured it out. And now she is coming here. Jake, do you understand what this means? She is one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. You have to be perfect. You cannot mess this up. Jake spent the rest of the day being coached by Claire and a diplomat who arrived from Earth. They taught him how to bow, how to speak, what not to say. His head was spinning with rules and protocols. Do not look her in the eye too long. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not mention politics or religion. Do not. Stop, Jake said finally. This is too much. I cannot remember all of this. You have to, the diplomat insisted. The future of human-Zephyrian relations depends on you. Jake felt sick. He was just a guy who fixed things. He was not prepared for this. That night, he could not sleep. He kept thinking about the alien woman he had pulled from the dying ship. He had not thought about her much since then. He had assumed she recovered and went home. He had never expected to see her again. Why was she coming all this way just to meet him? The next morning, alarms rang through the station. A massive Zephyrian ship was approaching. It was a royal cruiser, beautiful and deadly, covered in silver and purple metal. Jake stood in the docking bay wearing his cleanest uniform. His hands were shaking. Behind him were Commander Claire, the diplomat, and security officers. Everyone looked nervous. The alien ship docked. There was a long moment of silence. Then the airlock opened with a hiss. Princess Sora came out first, followed by guards in ceremonial armor. Then more attendants and officials. It was a long procession of important-looking aliens. Finally, Queen Velshara emerged. She was tall and regal, wearing flowing robes of silver and blue. Her pale skin seemed to glow. Her silver hair was braided with jewels. She moved with grace and power. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Jake's breath caught in his throat. This was the person he had rescued? She had looked so fragile in that pod. Now she looked like she could command armies with a single word. The queen walked slowly through the docking bay, examining everything. Her eyes swept over the assembled humans. Then her gaze landed on Jake. She stopped walking. Her eyes widened slightly. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Jake remembered he was supposed to bow. He bowed quickly, awkwardly. The queen moved toward him. Her guards tensed, but she waved them back. She stopped right in front of Jake, so close he could see his reflection in her purple eyes. You, she said softly. You are the one who saved me. Jake did not know what to say. He had forgotten all his training, so he just told the truth. Yes, Your Majesty. Velshara continued to stare at him. Then, to everyone's shock, she knelt down on one knee in front of him. Your Majesty, her guards gasped. Jake was frozen. The most powerful person in 3-star systems was kneeling before him, a lowly maintenance worker. It felt wrong. Backwards. Impossible. Jake stood frozen as Queen Velshara knelt before him. Everyone in the docking bay stared in shock. This was not supposed to happen. Queens did not kneel before anyone. Your Majesty, please, Jake said, his voice shaking. You should not. You saved my life. Velshara said, her voice clear and strong. You risked your own life to save mine. In my culture, this creates a debt that must be honored. She stood up slowly, keeping her eyes on his face. I have come to repay that debt. Ask anything of me, Jake Morrison. Anything within my power. Jake's mind went blank. What could he possibly ask for from a queen? Money? He did not need much. Power? He had no interest in that. Technology? He would not know what to do with it. He started, then stopped. Your Majesty, I do not want anything. I just did what anyone would do. Velshara tilted her head, studying him. But that is not true. Many people would have ignored the distress signal. Many would have refused to board a dying ship. You chose to act. Why? Jake thought about it. Why had he done it? Because it was the right thing to do, he said simply. Someone was dying. I could help. So I did. Velshara was quiet for a long moment. Then a small smile touched her lips. The right thing to do, she repeated. How? Human. She turned to her attendants. Leave us. All of you. I wish to speak with Jake Morrison alone. Your Majesty, General Thexvar protested. That is not safe. I am safe, Velshara said firmly. This man saved my life. He will not harm me now. Leave us. Reluctantly, the Zephyrians and humans backed away, leaving Jake and the Queen alone in the docking bay. Velshara walked to a bench and sat down. She patted the space beside her. Sit with me. I do not bite. Jake sat down carefully, keeping some distance between them. He had never been so nervous in his life. Tell me about yourself, she said. I want to understand the person who saved me. There is not much to tell, Jake said. I fix things. Pipes, filters, machines. That is what I do. But you are good at it? I guess. I figure out how things work. Then I fix them when they break. That is a valuable skill, Velshara said. In my empire we have many warriors and politicians. But we always need people who can fix things. They talked for an hour. Velshara asked questions about Earth, about human culture, about Jake's life. She seemed genuinely curious about everything. Jake slowly relaxed. She was not as scary as he had thought. She was just a person, despite being a queen. Can I ask you something? Jake said. Of course. Why did you come all this way just to meet me? You could have just sent a message. Velshara looked out at the stars through the bay windows. Because honor matters. Because gratitude should be shown in person, not through words on a screen. And because... She paused. I wanted to understand why you did it. I needed to see the kind of person who would risk everything for a stranger. And? Jake asked. Do you understand now? I think so, she said softly. You humans have something we Zephyrians have lost. Simplicity. You see something wrong, and you fix it. You see someone suffering and you help. No politics. No calculations. Just kindness, Jake shrugged. We are not all like that. Plenty of humans are selfish. True, but you are not. And that gives me hope. Over the next 3 days, Velshara stayed on the station. She insisted on learning about human daily life. She followed Jake during his work, watching him repair systems and solve problems. At first, it was awkward. Jake was very aware that an alien queen was watching him fix a toilet. But Velshara asked intelligent questions. She wanted to understand how everything worked. Your approach is different from ours, she said as Jake repaired a water pump. Zephyrians would replace the whole system. But you are fixing individual parts. Why? Because we do not waste things, Jake explained. This pump is old, but it is good. It just needs a new valve. Why throw away the whole thing? Efficiency, Velshara nodded. We Zephyrians focus on perfection. But perfection is expensive. Your way is smarter. On the second day, they had dinner together in the small station cafeteria. The Queen insisted on eating human food. She tried pizza and nearly choked on the cheese, which made Jake laugh. Then she laughed too. This is terrible, she said, smiling. I love it. They talked about their worlds. Velshara told Jake about the Zephyrian homeworld, with its purple skies and floating cities. Jake told her about Earth, about forests and oceans. I would like to see Earth someday, Velshara said. And I would like to see your world, Jake replied. She looked at him thoughtfully. Perhaps you will. On the third day, Velshara showed Jake something on her tablet. It was a video from her dying ship's cameras. It showed Jake entering the ship, reaching her pod, and connecting his suit's heater to save her. I watched this many times, she said quietly. "I saw you sacrifice your warmth for me. You could have died from the cold." Jake watched the video. He looked small and clumsy in that bulky suit. But he looked determined, too. "I did not think about it," he said. "I just knew I had to keep you alive." "That is what makes you remarkable," Velshara said. "You act without thinking of yourself. That is rare." Jake Morrison. "Very rare." She stood up. "I have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" "Come to my world. Be a cultural ambassador. Help my people understand humans better. I think both our species could learn from each other." Jake was stunned. "Me? I am not a diplomat." "Exactly. You are real. You are honest. You are what humans truly are. Not politicians with rehearsed speeches. Just you." "I do not know," Jake said. "This is a lot to think about." "I understand. But consider it. You would be helping both our worlds. And," she smiled slightly, "you would be helping me. I could use a friend who tells me the truth." That evening, Velshara prepared to leave. Her ship was ready, and her people were waiting. Jake walked with her to the docking bay. "Thank you for these 3 days," she said. "I learned more about humanity from you than from all my reports." "Thank you for coming," Jake said. "I never expected to meet you again. Will you think about my proposal?" Jake nodded. "Yes, I will think about it." Velshara reached into her robe and pulled out a small device. "This is a communicator. It is linked directly to me. If you decide to come, or if you just want to talk, use it." Jake took the device. It was warm in his hand, made of the same silver metal as her ship. "One more thing," Velshara said. She took off her pendant, the one with the crown symbol, and placed it in Jake's hand. "In my culture, this shows that you are under royal protection. No Zephyrian will harm you while you wear this. Keep it safe. Your Majesty, I cannot." "You can, and you will." She smiled. "Besides, I owe you a life debt. Remember? This is just the beginning of repaying it." She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back. "Jake Morrison, you are the one who saved me. But I think, perhaps, you have saved more than just my life. You have reminded me what honor truly means." Then she was gone, walking onto her ship with her entourage. The airlock closed. The ship undocked and flew away into the stars. Jake stood in the empty docking bay, holding the pendant and the communicator. His quiet, simple life had just become very complicated. Commander Claire came up beside him. "So? What are you going to do?" Jake looked at the pendant in his hand. The crown symbol seemed to glow in the light. "I do not know," he said honestly. "But I think my life just changed." "Yeah," Claire said. "I think it did." 2 weeks after Queen Velshara left, Jake made his decision. He looked at the pendant she had given him and picked up the communicator. "Hello?" he said into it, feeling silly talking to a piece of metal. The device glowed. A moment later, Velshara's face appeared in a hologram above it. "Jake," she said, smiling. "You called. I have been thinking about your offer. If you still want me to come, I will do it." Her smile grew wider. "That is wonderful news. When can you leave?" "Whenever you need me." 3 days later, Jake was on a shuttle heading to the Zephyrian homeworld. Earth's government was not happy about it, but they could not refuse. Refusing would insult the Queen. President Nathan Cross had called Jake personally. "Do not embarrass us, Morrison. Remember that you represent all of humanity." Jake had replied simply, "I will just be myself, sir." That is what the Queen asked for. The Zephyrian homeworld was called Zephara Prime. When Jake's shuttle approached it, he pressed his face against the window in amazement. The sky was purple, just like Velshara had said. Floating cities drifted above the clouds, connected by bridges of light. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Velshara met him at the royal spaceport. She was surrounded by guards and officials, but her face lit up when she saw him. "Welcome to my world," she said. Jake was given quarters in the palace. They were bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls were made of crystal that changed colors. The furniture seemed to float. It was overwhelming. But Velshara did not give him time to feel lost. The next day, she took him on a tour of the capital city. "I want you to see everything," she said. "The good and the bad." She showed him the wealthy upper districts where nobles lived in luxury. Then she showed him the lower districts where workers struggled to survive. Jake was surprised. He had thought all Zephyrians lived well. "Every society has inequality," Velshara said sadly. "Even ours. This is why I need people like you, Jake. You see problems and you want to fix them." In the lower districts, Jake noticed that a water purification plant was barely working. The water coming out was cloudy. People were getting sick. "Can I look at that?" he asked. Velshara was surprised but nodded. Of course. Jake spent the next 6 hours inside the plant, examining the systems. The Zephyrian engineers watched him skeptically. They did not think a human could understand their technology, but machines were machines. Jake found the problem. The filtration system was clogged with mineral deposits. The Zephyrians had been trying to replace the whole system, which would take months and cost a fortune. Jake showed them how to clean the filters instead. It took 2 days of work, but the plant started producing clean water again. The cost was almost nothing compared to replacement. The story spread through the city. The human had fixed what Zephyrian engineers could not. People started seeing Jake differently. He was not just an alien. He was someone who cared enough to help. News reached the media. Soon, Jake was famous across the Zephyrian Empire. The Queen's human friend, who fixed water plants. It was a strange kind of fame. But Jake did not mind. He was helping people. That was what mattered. Velshara watched all this with growing satisfaction. "You are showing my people what I wanted them to see. That humans are not weak or primitive. You are resourceful and kind." But not everyone was happy about the growing friendship between humans and Zephyrians. A group of Zephyrian nobles called the Pure Council hated the idea of working with aliens. They thought it made the Empire look weak. One evening, as Velshara and Jake walked through the palace gardens, armed men suddenly appeared. They wore no uniforms. Their faces were covered. "Get behind me," Velshara commanded, but Jake saw one assassin aiming a weapon at her back. He did not think. He just moved. He pushed Velshara aside and grabbed a metal garden sculpture. He threw it at the assassin, hitting the weapon and knocking it away. Guards arrived seconds later. But Jake had already tackled another assassin. His maintenance work had made him strong. And surprise was on his side. The assassination attempt failed. The attackers were captured. Velshara was shaken but unhurt. "You saved me again," she said, looking at Jake with wonder. "Twice now." Jake rubbed his bruised shoulder. "I guess I am making a habit of it." The assassination attempt had consequences. Velshara used it to expose the Pure Council's corruption. She showed the evidence to the Zephyrian High Court. Many nobles were arrested, but more importantly, it showed the Zephyrian people that a human had risked his life to save their queen. Public opinion shifted. Humans were no longer seen as weak aliens. They were seen as potential friends. A week later, Ambassador Sophie Grant arrived on Zephyra Prime with a delegation from Earth. President Cross had sent her to discuss a formal alliance. The negotiations were difficult. Both sides had concerns. But Jake and Velshara worked behind the scenes, building trust between the teams. "Look at them," Velshara said one day, pointing at Jake and Sophie talking with Zephyrian officials. Humans and Zephyrians, working together. A month ago, this seemed impossible. General Thexvar nodded. "You were right to bring him here, Your Majesty. He has changed more minds than any politician could." Finally, an agreement was reached. Earth and the Zephyrian Empire would form an alliance. They would share technology and knowledge. They would defend each other against threats. It was the beginning of a new era. At the signing ceremony, Velshara gave a speech. This alliance was built by many people, but it started with one person, a maintenance technician named Jake Morrison, who saw someone in danger and chose to help. His simple act of kindness showed us that we are not so different. Whether human or Zephyrian, we all value courage, honor, and compassion. Jake watched from the side, feeling embarrassed by all the attention. He was wearing a formal uniform that felt uncomfortable. He missed his work clothes. After the ceremony, Velshara found him. "How do you feel?" Relieved it is over," Jake admitted. "Can I go back to fixing things now?" She laughed. "Actually, I have a proposal. A real one this time." "What is it?" "We are building a joint research station, half human, half Zephyrian. We need someone to oversee the engineering systems. Someone both sides trust." Jake thought about it. It sounded like a lot of responsibility, but it also sounded interesting. "Will there be pipes to fix?" he asked. "Many pipes," Velshara said, smiling. "And filters. And machines. Lots of machines." "Then I accept." Over the next months, construction began on the station. Jake worked with both human and Zephyrian engineers. He learned their technology and taught them his methods. Slowly, they became a real team. Dr. Laura Stevens and engineer Dan Foster were the other humans on the project. They were brilliant scientists. But Jake's practical approach often solved problems they could not. "You have a gift," Laura told him one day. "You see solutions that others miss." Jake shrugged. "I just think about what makes sense." 1 year after the rescue, the research station was completed. It floated in space between Earth and Zephyra Prime, a symbol of cooperation between two species. At the opening ceremony, Velshara stood beside Jake. They both wore matching uniforms, showing they were equals in this endeavor. "Do you remember when I asked why you saved me?" She said quietly. "Yes, you wanted to understand humans. I understand now. You saved me because it was the right thing to do. No other reason needed. That is what makes your species special. You do not overthink. You just act." "Sometimes we overthink," Jake said. "Sometimes we make terrible decisions." "True. But when it matters most, you do the right thing. That is why I trust humans. That is why I trust you." The station's systems came online. Humans and Zephyrians worked side by side in the control room. It was working. The alliance was real. Jake looked out at the stars. A year ago, he had been fixing toilets on a mining ship. Now he was here, helping build a future where two species could work together. All because he had chosen to help someone in trouble. All because he had done the right thing. "What are you thinking?" Velshara asked. Jake smiled. "I am thinking that sometimes the smallest choices lead to the biggest changes." "Wise words," she said. "For a maintenance technician." "Former maintenance technician," he corrected. "Now, I am a maintenance technician and an ambassador. And a hero," she added. "No," Jake said firmly. "Just a guy who fixes things. Including friendships between species, apparently." Velshara laughed. It was a sound that Jake had come to love. A sound that meant hope and trust and friendship. The station hummed to life around them. Two species working together. Two worlds learning from each other. All because one ordinary human had shown extraordinary kindness. Jake Morrison had saved Queen Velshara's life twice. But in doing so, he had saved something even bigger. He had saved the possibility of peace between two civilizations, and all it had taken was doing the right thing.